that we all call home. At this point, you're going to be hearing from some great speakers, from some great partners, and most importantly, some great experts. But let me start off by kicking it over to the GMCVB President and CEO, David Whitaker, for some welcome comments. David?
Thank you, Rolando, and I want to thank everyone for being on the call. This is being recorded, so we'll post this and have a treasure of it so that you can use it perhaps for other trainings. We're going to jump right in. We've got an illustrious panel, a lot of people with a lot of experience, and we can never take this for granted, right? Although it's been many, many years since we've had a direct landfall. Every year is a threat, and every year we have to be prepared as if our action plan had to go into effect. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Alina Hudak, who is the city manager of Miami Beach. Prior to joining Miami Beach, Alina spent many, many years in her role as assistant county manager with Miami-Dade County, so she was at the forefront of much of our county's preparedness and is an industry veteran in that space. But Alina, in your new space as the city manager of the fabulous Miami Beach, a vulnerable barrier island, so obviously very important that our beach partners be prepared. Alina, thank you, and let me turn it quickly over to you.
Thank you, David. It's always wonderful to participate in this forum. It's sad to be on Zoom. I was really hoping that we'd be in person this year. This is probably, I don't know, Wendy, my 10th time being in this meeting. When it wasn't Zika, we were talking about hurricanes. So it's certainly an honor to participate, and it's important. You know, I always ask all of you, why do you keep inviting me back? And I think it's very important to hear from the highest levels of our governments, both our municipal government, but our county, our regional government, so that our hotel managers, so that the facility managers, so that all of you know that, you know, we are your partner. We are here preparing year round, making sure that our plans are up to date, that we learn lessons from our different experiences, that we have the best professionals running our operations, our emergency management operations, our fire and rescue, our public safety officials ready to respond. God forbid that we have to face the eventuality of any type of storm. And, you know, sometimes it's a category storm, but sometimes it's just a really heavy event that comes through our community. And we know that we've seen events that are not necessarily categorized that that have an impact. So it's an honor for me to be here this morning to listen to all of you. My favorite meteorologist is on. And so I always love the opportunity to listen to Ryan and his wisdom. And so I have the honor of introducing a video prepared by both our mayors, my mayor, the mayor of the city of Miami Beach, Dan Gelber, as well as I believe our regional mayor, our countywide mayor, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. So with that, I'm going to introduce the video, and I will be on as long as possible and participating and ready to respond to any questions you may have.
I'm Dan Gelber, and it's my privilege to be the mayor of Miami Beach. Welcome to the 2022 annual Hurricane Preparedness meeting for our tourism partners. Our partners include the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Greater Miami and the Beaches Hotel Association, Miami-Dade County Office of Emergency Management, and of course our city departments, our fire department, our Division of Emergency Management, our Tourism and Cultural Development, and of course our Economic Development Department. We appreciate the collaboration with all our hotels year-round, and we especially appreciate that you recognize the importance of readiness and planning when it comes to safety. Now, if you don't know already, you will certainly hear from experts today that forecasts predict what they call an active hurricane season this year. What does that mean? That means they predict 19 named storms, 9 hurricanes, including 4 major hurricanes. But no matter the numbers, preparedness is key. It only takes one storm on the right trajectory to give us all cause for concern. I encourage you to follow the guidance of the professionals you will meet today, especially our friends in the beachfront hotels. And this year we welcome our short-term rental properties to our annual meeting, which emphasizes our commitment to safety for all our visitors. I'm appreciative of your interest in understanding the necessary steps you should be taking to keep your properties and your guests safe and secure should a significant storm approach our area. Now, the City of Miami Beach maintains a database with hotel emergency information. It's your responsibility to update this information and return it to the City of Miami Beach whenever there is a change to any of the information points. Our tourist hurricane hotline is 311, and it provides visitors with information on hotel room availability outside the evacuation zone. Updates on airport and seaport status and responses to visitors' inquiries are within 24 hours a day. Thank you all for all you're doing to keep our community safe and to keep our residents and visitors safe. Have a safe hurricane season.
Mayor Gelber, Manager Hudak, and my friends David and Wendy, thank you for convening today's hotel preparedness meeting. I am grateful for your leadership in ensuring that our residents, the millions of our visitors to the county, and our community's amazing hotel and hospitality staff are all prepared for our upcoming hurricane season. It's never too early to prepare your home and your business for a natural disaster. Planning well before a storm will create a more relaxed environment when the time comes. We encourage everyone to start preparations, and this is the best time to do it before the start of hurricane season. Get a kit. If an emergency occurs, have a kit with essential items ready, such as water for drinking, take it from the tap and put it in reusable containers, and sanitation, non-perishable food, and a manual can opener, enough for at least 3 days. Other essential items such as a flashlight, weather radio, first aid kit, medications, diapers, and formula for small children, important documents, and food for your pets should also be included. Make a plan. Create a family emergency plan with evacuation routes, contact information, and important phone numbers. Be sure every member of your family reviews it and have an out-of-town family contact that everyone can reach in case of an emergency. Be informed. Make sure to download the Ready MDC app and continue monitoring local media or verified social media platforms for the latest updates and advisories. Know your zone. Find out if you live in an area that could potentially be affected by a storm surge during a hurricane and sign up for Miami-Dade alerts. This free service will send you text messages about any significant emergency event. Get involved. There are many ways to take action in your community before a disaster occurs to increase the support of emergency response agencies during disasters. You can take a free training in basic disaster response skills and learn fire safety, light search and rescue skills, team organization, and disaster medical operations. Knowing what to do before, during, and after a storm helps you increase your chances of survival and better protect your property and business.
So again, to our mayors and Alina, to you, thank you for your leadership in this area. And I'm going to now have the privilege of introducing a dear friend and a friend of all of us on this call. That's Wendy Kalergis from the Hotel Association. You know, we're partners on the best of times, Wendy, but it's even more important that we partner in possibly the worst of times. And there's not going to be a more significant challenge to our hospitality infrastructure, especially our hotel community, than a major disruption from a storm. And so this preparation is just so vitally important. As Mayor Levine Cava said, we have to get our own homes ready first for our loved ones, because our focus come game time, if you will be the residents and guests in our hotels. And think about it, they're not going to have the experiences that we've had over the years, or any of the innate knowledge. There are going to be tons of questions that our hotel guests are going to be asking your staff. And so the more prepared we are, and the more prepared your staff is to make sure that we address the questions and concerns and safety of our hotel guests. And leading that off in this discussion is our partner, Wendy Kalergis. Wendy, thanks for being here and thanks for your leadership.
Thank you so much, David, for the introduction, and Rolando, special thanks to our GMCVB family and everybody on this call. I still think about when I was working at the Grand Bay Hotel, and I can't remember, I don't know which hurricane that was coming, but like my kids were little, I had to pick up all of the lawn for the pool furniture, put it in storage before I could, go home and get everything I needed. So that's just a personal awareness I wanted to share with you. But the early season offers us the time we need to strategize and organize. We're very fortunate to have the full attention of all of our mayors, government leaders, and emergency management from the city of Miami Beach and Miami-Dade County. To our hoteliers, Ryan Phillips stated, with the anticipation of another active hurricane season, the preparation we perform today will serve us tenfold should we need to take action tomorrow. To our general managers and your executive teams, if you have not already done so, please have a plan in place for your employees, management, and owners for your properties. It's very important to recognize we are still living with serious supply chain shortages. I saw on the news last night, baby formula. There's a crisis going on with baby formula. So make sure that your employees are ready at their homes early, like now. I think now's the time. And that will be very helpful. For them to feel comfortable helping get the hotels ready. Make sure you have everything that you need, and also encourage and assist your HR. Make sure your HR directors have all updated employee contacts, whether it's just their own contact, but also their family contacts, because that's a really helpful thing when we go into. We don't want to talk about an evacuation, but we really need to be ready. So I also mentioned about the pool furniture. A lot of the boutique hotels that are right on the beach, make sure that you have some sort of storage accessible and ready for all outdoor furniture, because a lot of our smaller hotels do not have that. Just be ready and know that you can count on all of us, all of our support. My cell phone, by the way, I'm going to do a Bill Talbot, you all. My cell phone is 305-282-2812. 305-282-2812. Call me anytime you need anything or you have a question that I can help you with. And if I can't help you, I will reach out to all of my partners here that's on the webinar with us. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a great partner and friend, Ryan Phillips. And Ryan, before you speak, I was looking at your bio, and I just want to share some great points of reference for you. Ryan Phillips is the evening meteorologist for NBC6. He's been forecasting Florida weather since 2003. He must have been about 15 years old at the time, right, Ryan? And having worked on both the Gulf and Atlantic coasts. Before joining the NBC6 weather team, Ryan worked for WZBN, the ABC affiliate for Naples, Florida, Myers, where he spent 2 years forecasting for the weekend, morning, and evening broadcast. Ryan was part of the forecast team in August of 2004 that watched historic Category 4 Hurricane Charlie make landfall in Southwest Florida. Soon after his arrival in South Florida, he put that valuable experience to use as Hurricanes Katrina and Wilma wreaked havoc across our community. Since then, Ryan has helped South Florida through close calls with 2016's Matthew and 2017's Irma. Prior to moving to Florida, Ryan worked more than 3 years at KHGI in central Nebraska. Come on, you're really lucky. You're really happy to be here, right, with us. And you were recognized by the Associated Press of Nebraska. Ryan holds the seal of approval from the National Weather Association. Through the National Weather Association, Ryan and his family fund a national scholarship for undergraduate college students to make that major in meteorology. He also holds the designation as a certified broadcast meteorologist from the American Meteorologists. That is a long word, meteorologist society. Locally, Ryan is an active volunteer and supporter for the Humane Society of Greater Miami. And that's another great contact and great, we've got to take care of our pets during preparation as well. So in your spare time, Ryan speaks to schools and local organizations about weather awareness and hurricane preparation. We couldn't have a better friend and partner. And Ryan, thanks for doing everything that you do, and looking forward to getting your forecast.
Now, is this the point where I have to give out my cell phone number too?
No, you don't have to do that.
Okay. Well, my contact information will be in here in a little bit, so we'll get to that. All right, let's kick things off here. Thank you again for having me, and for folks that can stick around for a little while. I'll try to condense. I would rather not be in my kitchen speaking to you. I like the in-person. David wanted me to be in the studio, but I have a day off today, and I kind of have to take those days off when I can get them. So here we are. When you look at this picture, this is a forecast model plot. And I think that we've all been in the game long enough that when you see this, it generates some level of uncertainty and maybe anxiety. But there's one thing we can do. And of course, part of that is what we're doing today. We're gathering now to talk about our readiness, as Mayor Gelber had already mentioned in his video. And if we go into this with a level of certainty for ourselves and for our operations and how we're going to handle our properties and our guests, we can avoid all the stress that may come trying to ramp up quickly in the event a storm approaches. So there's a professor out at Stanford, and I've held on to this quote for a long time. In his book, he says, if for psychological reasons you decide that every single day is an emergency, you're going to pay the price in the long run. So we can just simply avoid ulcers by being proactive, getting prepared, and then the result of that is having confidence. And so I think that that's, one of the reminders of this gathering today is that if we take the time now to think all these different variables through and to think about our operations and how we're going to handle our team members, our guests, and our physical property, if we've reviewed that now and we have that confidence, we can at least remove some level of uncertainty of how we're going to handle things, at least property level. Of course, the one thing we can't always control, which we can't control, is the weather, but we'll deal with that and we'll be prepared in the event a storm comes close to South Florida. Now, last year was an exceptionally active season. We had 21 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. Now, Elsa was the only one that kind of gave us some grief. It put us in the cone for a while. And again, being in the cone always gives us some level of maybe anxiety or heightened awareness. Now, in these active seasons, it's very possible that we will end up in the cone many times, thus triggering that preparedness marker for our properties and for our families and for our daily operation in South Florida. What are we going to do, or what do we need to do next? But I'll go back and say, if we are prepared, we have a level of confidence to handle that and to approach that. Just want to mark this because this just came online last year. Our average Atlantic hurricane season, the numbers are higher. If you've lived in South Florida for all these years, you're used to an average season containing 12 named storms. Well, now it's 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes and 3 major hurricanes. So this is a reflection of the upward activity that we've seen over the course of the last 30 years. So this is now just the second season we're using that new average in the Atlantic basin. So just something to keep in mind as to why those numbers are a little bit higher. Now, of course, we're in Hurricane Alley. This zigzag map goes back into the 1800s, but the most recent were at least through 2005, which was very notable for South Florida, where we had close encounters with Katrina and Wilma. Katrina actually made landfall in southern Broward County and Hallandale Beach. And of course, we all felt the impacts of that. Add on to that, everything that's happened since. And we've had a lot of different storms come very close and putting us in a level of readiness with some impacts. But our number will be up soon. We don't know when, but we know the clock is always ticking against us. Now, there's kind of 2 divisions I like to look at. If you've been around and you experienced the season of 2004, which was the Florida 4 and 04, they made t-shirts and everything for Charlie, Francis, Gene, and Ivan, and then you were here for Katrina and Wilma. You have that awareness and you know kind of what it's like. But if you're new here and maybe your most recent memory is of Matthew, which still tracked 90 miles to the east of South Florida, or Irma, which tracked through the Florida Keys, Gordon, which developed right on top of us in Florida Bay, Dorian off to our east. And then in 2020, we had 3 different storms move by. But again, the important thing is we have not had an exceptionally devastating or exceptionally, and I mean exceptionally widespread impactful event here in South Florida. So a lot of you say, well, what about Irma? Because Irma was such a dynamic system, and it was probably our closest approach by the real thing. And so we were all aware, we were ready. With Irma, you prepared for a hurricane and you were ready, but you didn't go through it. Now, how is that possible? It went through the Keys. We had impacts here. Yes, it's true. But using this map, we can see that here in South Florida, and specifically on Miami Beach, we had a period of sustained tropical storm force winds. We did not have hurricane conditions on Miami Beach. So we can't use that as the benchmark for, okay, if I prepared for if I prepared for Irma, then I've done everything right. Well, you did a lot, but we don't know the end result of what your preparations look like because we didn't go through a hurricane. So don't let Irma be that benchmark that if I prepared for Irma, then I'm going to be okay. Because Irma, again, only provided us tropical storm conditions for a prolonged period of time with some hurricane gusts. So we have to level kind of what our expectations are and what the end result is each season. And for many, Irma was kind of the most recent glancing blow that you can remember. Now, the seasonal forecast, and even Mayor Gelber already kind of pointed towards this. I want to remind you that the seasonal forecasts speak only to the total activity that we'll see in the Atlantic basin. That's the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico from June all the way to November. So it's a big time period there. These forecasts do not speak to actual landfalls. I cannot tell you there will be 3 landfalls in the United States this season. I can't tell you there will be none. We don't have that skill, but we do have the skill to give a good leading forecast to say there's going to be X amount of activity in the Atlantic basin. And those forecasts have been pretty good. Now, our return period, I'd already mentioned, our number is up, or it will be up soon. Our return period, that is the frequency in which a tropical storm comes back through South Florida, is 2.5 years. So technically, by the books, we're due. And it doesn't have to be a Cat 1, a Cat 2, a Cat 3. Tropical storms, even tropical depressions, are very disruptive. Of course, they're disruptive to business and having people in our hotels and having people in our city and having conventions in town. But even a tropical storm or tropical depression or tropical storm can be enough to deflect people from being here. A tropical depression or tropical storm can also maybe not present big problems in terms of wind, but a tremendous amount of trouble with rainfall. And so again, no 2 storms are the same. The impacts can vary widely. What are we preparing for? We are preparing for an above average hurricane season. Colorado State, which there are multiple, there are over 15 private, public, and academic forecasts that are issued each season to kind of gauge what's the season going to be like. The 2 that we turn to are the ones from Colorado State and from NOAA. The Colorado State forecast came out in April on schedule. Their schedule is April. There'll be another update coming in early June. Bottom line, above average activity. And again, above average, keeping in mind what those new averages are. Remember, 14, 7, and 3. So for the last few years, our forecasts have called for above average seasons, and they've delivered. Now, one thing you're going to hear a lot about this season will be La Nina. You haven't heard much about El Nino. Wait, I'm sorry. Did I say La Nina? La Nina. We will not hear much about El Nino or even neutral conditions. I don't want to get into the weeds here on the science, but the bottom line is La Nina favors more Atlantic activity. And the probability that we'll go through the heart of our Atlantic hurricane season favoring La Nina conditions, which again are conducive to tropical storm development and or sustaining those systems, should put us on guard. And so there's not a lot of signal, or not much signal at all, that we can flip that back to put the environment in something that would help to deter development. So I imagine next week when the NOAA seasonal forecast comes out, that's on Tuesday, you're going to see a very high range for named storms. Could be somewhere between like 14 and 19, could be 15 to 21. I don't know, but I will bet X amount of money that that we're going to be looking from NOAA for an above average Atlantic hurricane season. So you'll see those numbers flying around by the time we get to next Tuesday. Now, property level, I mean, you know, whether you're joining the call as a DOS, DOSM, Director of Revenue Management, front office, you are a leader, you are a person in the know, and you are a person who can help contribute to all these different preparation bullet points. Security, facilities management, engineering, all of those folks are vital when you work together as a team to bring all levels of your property up and ready, it certainly helps the entire operation be storm ready and prepared. You know, you got to think, as Wendy had mentioned, you know, your peripheral things like your pool deck, even just the trash cans out in the valet area, you know, securing all those loose things around the property. Thinking ahead of time, because it's tough to get into the moment and think who's going to stay, who's going to be around, how are we going to scale down our staffing so that our team members can get home to prepare their houses, their properties, their families. And kind of a note that that was already mentioned, you know, when we allow our team members to be ready, they're ready and they are confident at home so that they may come back to help us property level to bring their operations and stand them back up. So again, it's a balancing act between your team members and their off time and their team members in your on time, again, leading to the success of being as fully operational as possible. So determining who would stay and who would depart, very important in this preseason when you're developing your plan. Again, keeping safety in mind. And one thing that I think is very concerning, you know, we are obviously in the hospitality business. And so guest experience is very important. So one thing I would encourage you is to figure out what your messaging will look like to your guests. And so if everyone's unified, no matter what part of the hotel a guest turns, they're getting the same message from everyone. You can control that internally. And I would think about what systems you would utilize to help steady the message across your property in the event of any type of tropical event, whether it's a tropical storm, depression, or unfortunately a hurricane. So when you can help your guests, you know, feel comfort when they feel helpless because they're here on vacation and maybe they can't get out, or maybe it's delayed when they can leave, your input and your guidance can really help them. So I encourage you to have your team prepare their plans now, both for how they'll deal with things within their departments, property level, but then of course also, with their families. And again, when you figure out what your communications look like and you figure out what your expectations for preparation and then maybe a return to normalcy, what that looks like, it can help you stand up your operations faster. One thing I'll leave you with here is that the overwhelming majority of deaths and injuries, especially in injuries, occur after the storm, not during. Because during the storm, we're hunkered down, we're in our safe place. But it's after, when we introduce generators and the threat of carbon monoxide, or people doing precarious things on ladders or cleanup, or using tools that they're not used to using. That's where the hazards lie. So again, safety is vital as part of your preparedness plan. Sherry will likely talk more about the emergency supply list that you could utilize for both preparing your home, your family, and of course your property. Wendy had already alluded to the supply chain problems. And so the sooner you get ahead of this, remember the meat of our hurricane season here in South Florida is not June and July. We can still utilize that period for preparation, but we've got to be on the ready starting in August and carrying all the way into early November. So again, if there are certain things that are missing from your property supply list, now's the time to get ahead of that. All right, last section here is disinformation. We hear about that in the news and whatnot, but there's a lot of that goes on in weather, because it's easy to just share something that you don't know much about, but it certainly gets your attention. And that's kind of the genesis of why we share things, because it's attention grabbing. This was back from, I think, 2014 or 2016. There's no context to this. That's not reasonable guidance for someone to do something with. Hurricane threatens Gulf states next week. Strong concerns with this system. The system hadn't even developed yet. That turned out to be nothing, but it generated a lot of online buzz and therefore misinformation. Some of the more reputable weather apps sometimes can put out things that are very sketchy. I sketched in the red lines there to show how wide of an area that they're trying to commit to. I mean, I could do that every day on the news for 6 months and call it right. That's not good science, and that's not good messaging. So my point is be careful about the content that you're examining online and make sure that there's merit to it. This has already happened this year. If you see the up top here, this was just on the 12th. This was just 5 days ago. In 1 hour, this website generated over 6,000 shares. Now, this is totally irresponsible because what happened? 48 hours later, I checked the models, and where is that system that they're hyping? Well, it's over in Southeast Georgia. So there's no merit to that, but folks were caught on and immediately drawn into this idea that, oh God, there's going to be some sort of tropical system approaching Louisiana in 10 days. But again, it's all hype and it's not based in good science. So again, just be careful online, use verified sources. Obviously, the county is tremendous about communicating information down to all the cities and municipalities. And so that's important. So Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, that's where to go. These little, Facebook groups and Nextdoor, I'd be very cautious there. Finding verified users on Twitter, subject matter experts, that's the place to go. And then of course, finding your favorite local media outlet. Just keep the information sound and thorough and trustworthy, because there's a lot of information through it, but of course funnel it so you get the most appropriate and sound information that you can make decisions on. So again, above average season expected. Now's the time to map out your preparation and your stand-up plan in the event that we do have the misfortune of having a tropical incident here in South Florida. But if you prepare, you're one step ahead because it already gives you the confidence that you need going into the season. So with that, my Twitter handle's there and my email. I invite anyone to drop me a line. If you have any specific questions about your property or about your home or your family's plan, I'd be more than happy to help you. And Wendy, of course, as always, thank you for having me again this year.
Ryan, thank you. That was amazing. And of course, I think if I took a Zoom poll, I think I know who would be our favorite local broadcast weather person, but I won't put anybody on the spot. But a great way of communicating, rather complex information in a very, very user-friendly fashion, preventing the ulcers that you talked about at the top of your presentation. By the way, I have added the book link, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, in the chat group. If anybody's curious to what Ryan was alluding to, apparently it's quite the read. It's got 4.5 stars on Amazon, so it must be good stuff. So thank you, Ryan, for that. Better than Oprah's reading list. I did want to remind us all, we're about to go to our next speaker, but please, we're going to be taking questions through the chat features. Anybody has questions for whether it's Ryan or David or Wendy or even the manager, if she's still able to join us, or others, please use that. We'll be monitoring that chat group. But let's get on to our next presenter. And it's my privilege, again, to introduce someone that is representing one of our dear county partners. That's Troy Johnson. He's the Emergency Management Coordinator for Miami-Dade County's Office of Emergency Management. So let us turn it over to Troy. Troy, thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, this is a great, important time to be prepared. As hearing from Ryan, I think the key thing with that is having the confidence, building that within the team and among the community is really a great way to be prepared and ready for the season. I'm going to go ahead here and share my presentation. Everyone should be able to see that. And as we get started, I just want to give a quick background for what we do here at Miami-Dade County Emergency Management. I love when we respond or dealing with disasters, it is here at our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center. And what the function that we carry out is really coordinating response and coordination of resources to the area of greatest need. This place is really a central place as far as control, command and control, when there's a countywide impact that's occurring from a threat. During day-to-day, like here throughout the blue skies, we really look at implementing our principles as far as the disaster preparedness, whether that be through mitigation, through preparedness, response, and recovery. All of those actions, we're actually reviewing those preparatory steps in those various phases with our stakeholders and partners, whether it be through private sector or as well as through government and local jurisdictions. And one of the key things we obviously look at is continuity of operations. It's really a big, important function that we look at, obviously, through various threats, whether it be the pandemic that we're kind of working out of now, and obviously looking at the hurricane season. That's really one of the key areas that we want to really stress to all of our partners. Obviously, hurricanes is not the only thing that we look at. We have special events, whether it be Super Bowl, obviously severe weather, whether it be wildland fires, tornadoes, obviously man-made threats, whether it be through terrorism or dealing with, we have hazardous materials that can occur from accidental or intentional due to our nuclear power plant that we have and other issues. Obviously, mass migration is another thing that we're looking at, which obviously is popping up in the news. But again, we're here for the hurricane season, which is really the big thing that we're looking at. As stressed by the mayors before with Gelber and Cava-Levine, as well as the city manager, knowing your zone is really one of the stressors, one of the key information we want to stress to everyone. As far as looking at this map here, what you see is a 5 storm surge planning zones, which is really the key thing that we evacuate as far as a protective action when it comes to hurricanes. Obviously, those areas in the zone A and B are the most low-lying areas. And then we work our way up as far as if there's a larger category of the storm, or depending on the direction of the storm and the strength of the storm, those other evacuation storm surge planning zones could be impacted as well. Most of the hotels I know are usually on the barrier islands and on the coastal areas. So again, knowing where you are as far as in zones A and B and maybe part of C is something that we really want to stress for people to be aware of. And you know, with that, as far as the storm surge, that's really what we planned for as far as protecting lives. People sometimes mistakenly think of wind. Really what we evacuate for is for that storm surge. And as far as a quick description, again, it's wind pushing water, where it's causing an abnormal rise of water generated by storm winds pushed onshore. And that's really what the key thing that we again look for, hence why zones A and B, again, you know, as far as hoteliers, businesses, key things to look at that now, especially now in this time. We see there's been a lot of heavy construction, and where is a lot of that population density occurring? It's usually in those low-lying areas, basically because of, again, the wow factor of being near the coast, being near the water. It's beautiful. It's what attracts visitors. It's what attracts the industry as far as having people come down here for the warm weather and for the playing in the water and the sand, the beach. But again, that also is where the threat can occur when it comes to hurricanes and storm surge. One of the messaging challenges, where there's a few that we always have, is folks get into the categories and they deal with, well, it's just a Cat 1, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And, you know, again, we like to stress that, and even at a Cat 1, it really can cause serious impact to our local area. As noted here, since 2010, we've had about 7 such storms that cause, as far as the United States, that has a direct impact when it comes to deaths, as well as damages to our country. And obviously, as noted by Ryan, where we live is a high frequency area for that threat when it comes to hurricanes. Another myth that usually comes up is, well, I've never had flooding in my neighborhood before, so I won't evacuate. And again, let me back up here. And the truth is that, again, a storm can impact, every storm is different, again, depending on the characteristics and the change in the track and the intensity. So again, everyone needs to be prepared, because you never know what can occur when it comes to the impact when a new storm or threat occurs. Again, also when it comes to a tropical storm, people feel that, well, you know, that is not going to be a big impact to me. But again, you know, as far as storms, Hurricane Sandy and Harvey has shown that, you know, that impact can be just as severe if we're not prepared for that. And it's not, again, the winds. That storm surge is a key thing that that comes into play with that. When it comes to the hoteliers, again, when it comes to preparedness, continuity of operations. I think it was mentioned before as far as planning and staffing and looking at as far as starting up your business again in the recovery phase. Having a continuity plan cannot be more stressed as far as a key thing that we want hoteliers to have. As far as even when the threat occurs and there needs to be a change in staffing levels, resources, all those things need to take into account the equipment that is housed within the facility, whether it be a generator, HVAC system, all those things that control the facility, business interruption insurance, having memorandum of understanding or agreements with inland hotels. All those things we want to make sure to stress as far as the preparedness planning that you want to take into account. That way, as these threats occur or any notices are provided from us from the county, you already have those processes in place to act so that there's not so there's more of a smooth operation with your business. When it comes to visitor evacuations, we want to stress that we do have a resource here with having a great relationship with the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. We do have them as a liaison here within our EOC, so they receive the information as soon as we decide what we're going to do as far as protective actions, so that they can then transmit that information, share that with their partners. And they're also a great resource as far as assistance with the visitors, tourism when it comes to traveling to the airport. And again, a great conduit as far as helping, assisting with connection with hotels that are inland in case of there is a protective action when it comes to evacuations. One of the key things that we also like to stress is, especially for the small hotels, we want to really send home the message to not direct to direct your visitors or your clientele to an evacuation center. That is not really the ideal place. Evacuation center is not a hotel. So, we want you to do your best to look at your preparedness planning as far as where you want to have it. If you have partnership with inland hotels, where you want to direct your guests to those locations, or if it need be, again, having the plan to have them leave early. And I know that as a business, it's kind of counterintuitive because on your blue skies, you want people to come to your facility. And now here it is with a threat or with imminent threat, and where we're doing protective actions. Now you're now switching that model and you're having guests leave. But again, having them go to an evacuation center is not the ideal option that we stress for that. So please keep that in mind to look at ways to alternative means to have guests have a preparedness plan in place. As noted before with Irma, it was really an interesting dynamic with that storm, in that it was really one of the largest evacuations that occurred for southern part of Florida. People did heed the warnings, and they saw that storm as a threat. And just to keep that in mind, when we evacuate, we really plan for evacuating within county, really just evacuating from a low-lying area inland within the county. And as we look at the characteristics of the storm, the direction of the storm, where we project with advice from the National Hurricane Center as far as where the storm surge may occur, this is where we look at which parts of storm surge planning zones we may activate, or combination of storm surge planning zones that we may activate. And based off of that impacts as far as the time that it takes to evacuate. Obviously, the larger the population, the more clearance time it would be needed to do that evacuation. So one of the key things as far as our decision-making we look at is projecting the arrival of tropical storm force winds, and then backing that up to look at the risk area, and then seeing how much time it will take for those residents and visitors to leave. So just want to keep note of that. Again, when it comes to evacuation centers, again, it's a place of last resort. It's not a 5-star hotel. We're not going to have massage service or spa services or turn down service. It's really just an open space for those to shelter in place while the threat passes, and then from there we look at the impact area and we're looking at really a planned shortened period of time where folks can just stay out of harm's way and then release back to their location to assess their place. Prior to COVID-19, evacuees were allotted 20 square feet per person. And as far as the setup, regardless of COVID-19, we made sure that all the facilities were ADA compliant. There are backup generators that are there to provide just really the basics as far as lighting and outlet for connection of personal devices, electronic devices, but it will not operate as far as air conditioning or any larger type of functions. So again, evacuation centers is really just a place to shelter in while out of harm's way. And from there, we'll reassess the situation as far as the impact. But general and pet-friendly evacuation centers may experience power outages depending on the impact of the storm to the area. But we'll make sure, again, with those backup generators that there'll be lighting as far as for safety reasons and connection to electronic devices. We do always stress for residents or those that come to an evacuation center to make sure they have a preparedness plan. It was mentioned earlier by other speakers as far as what to bring, as far as part of their as far as safety kit. Those includes prescription medication items, as far as bedding, personal hygiene items, any type of dietary foods or snacks, to also for those evacuees to bring with them. Again, the idea is that evacuees are to be self-reliant. Bring in with your package and then come in to the evacuation center, which is only there to provide an open space. And that's just one of the key things, again, we want to stress on why we don't want hoteliers to to just send their guests to an evacuation center. Most likely, visitors, they're not prepared for this. They're just more here for vacation time. They're not here to prepare to be in the evacuation center. So therefore, they may not have these items that we stress to residents that normally live here. As far as the social distance as far as COVID-19, the square footage was increased due to, again, to make more of a personal space for everyone from 20 to 36 square feet. There is a personal preparedness kit that we hand out to evacuees, and we actually do screenings each morning and even prior to, as far as when they first arrive, as far as to make sure screening for symptoms and fever upon entry, and then also every morning. The slight change that will occur this hurricane season is that thankfully with the mitigation actions that we've been doing as a community and as a state, whether it be vaccinations or hand washing, just sending the messaging of also just wearing masking when possible. We're really working with the Red Cross to then change the square footage back to 20 square feet, back to pre-COVID conditions, so that we'll be able to take in more people and maybe open up less evacuation centers. But again, that's on a case-by-case basis, depending on how a storm is, to know what impact area may be at risk, so we can know how many evacuation centers we need to accommodate based off the population that's affected by the risk area. Also, another part as far as in evacuation centers, we will be still issuing out masks. Obviously, we're also part of the preparedness kit. We'll have evacuees also bring masks if they can. Hand sanitizers will be there also in evacuation centers, and we'll still do the social distancing when possible, as far as on a standard. But again, we're going to revert back to the pre-COVID square footage when it comes to those that are staying in the evacuation centers. As far as the resources, we are offering various avenues where we can have anyone access information as far as what they can do to prepare. Our emergency management website through the county is available now, either miami-dade.gov/hurricane, where anyone can go and access information as far as what to do before, during, and after a hurricane. Also, we have hurricane guides that are being mailed out to residents. that can also be accessed by outreach events where we also share this information with our partners and with our cities, just again to get the word out as far as information with what everyone can take advantage of. Also, the same website during an activation changes where we then provide more specific information as far as the status of the county is also provided through this website. So it's really a great one-stop shop for information. We also, was mentioned before, we have an app where we really recommend visitors as well as residents download and take advantage of, so that they can, again, know their zone. Again, even for hotels and businesses, this is a great app to use so that you can know exactly where you are as far as the evacuation zone, so that when the order is given, you know exactly where you are and where your alternate location is. We also issue evacuation orders. That type of information is posted there. Bus pickup points, 311, so that for any public information where anyone can access for specific more detailed information that's needed, and important phone numbers. And the guide itself is also available there electronically. So between those two items in our guide, we feel that was really the kind of a three-pronged approach that we use to make sure that we get the information out to folks, and through partners like yourselves, we're willing to obviously to share this information so that you can educate your guests and visitors that come in to Miami-Dade County. The final thoughts I just want to share with everyone is that, again, developing storm, as the forecast is given and shared by media and through the Hurricane National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center, storms change, forecasts can change, and that affects our evacuation decisions. Again, if the storm slows down, then our evacuation, we may not give out the evacuation order right away. We'll look at that and reassess our protective actions, and wait to see if there's maybe a change in the risk and the impact to our area. So we'd really stress for everyone to pay close attention to media outlets as far as for emergency information and for the latest status as far as what protective actions are being brought up by the county. And again, coastal communities, you guys are at the greatest risk due to, again, your exposure to storms, and then also the low-lying areas for storm surge. When we give the order to do so, as far as to evacuate, again, we just want to have you be part of our messaging to share that to others, to really really convince those to do so, because we do know that there are some that may feel that it's not important to evacuate, or they feel that they'll luck it out. We really want to be partners with us to share that information as far as promoting that if the safety word is given to evacuate. Lastly, when it comes to critical infrastructure, hotels, unfortunately, we don't just target that as the guide for which tier is to be on the priority list to be as far as address for power restoration. Our two tiers are as follows. Tier 1 are hospitals, public safety, that being fire, police, as far as stations, due to the critical service that they provide. Water treatment plants and pump stations, due to our public health and environmental health concerns that we have with the water safety. And obviously then the second tier deals with those that are vulnerable populations, such as dialysis centers, assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and obviously blood banks, which are critical to our healthcare safety. And that's really about it that we just want to relay to everyone as far as our information that we'd like to share is from the county emergency management.
Troy, thank you so much. And you mentioned our intimate partnership going back many, many years. We literally are embedded at the Emergency Operations Center. A special shout out to one of our colleagues that worked with us for so many years on that, Jenny Gutierrez. I believe she's actually on the chat, and we all know her. And she spent a lot of time at that Emergency Operations Center. Not very comfortable, but always with a smile. And Troy, I know one of your key messages that these evacuation centers aren't designed for tourists. They don't have amenities. They don't have turn down service. Apparently, they do have newspaper delivery service. I saw that.
You saw that, right?
but that's a role that Wendy and the Hotel Association and ourselves, under David's leadership, can really facilitate finding available rooms if those guests do decide to stay in our community. So thank you again, Troy. And I also wanted to add that Troy has tremendous expertise, not only working for the county, he has also gone through FEMA's Master Exercise Practitioner Program. Quite an honor. So we've got a lot of great expertise on this Zoom webinar. And with that, he also talked about coastal communities. And Sherry Holbert-Lipner heads up the City of Miami Beach's Emergency Management Division. She's the Deputy Emergency Manager, and many would argue and many would agree that Miami Beach is at the tip of the spear on many of our climate-related issues, hurricanes being part of that. They just went through the Aspen Climate Conference last week, which is interrelated to this discussion about climate and weather patterns. So, Shari, thank you so much. You've been kind of, frankly, a driving force behind a lot of these discussions over the years. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rolando. And thank you, Wendy, also for inviting us every year. And we love to be a part of this. Speaking about the ulcers, people like Troy and I are the professional pessimists. It's our job to stress for you and give you all the tools you need to be prepared. If you're prepared, you have much less to worry about than if you're not prepared. So yeah, Ryan said the same thing. So let me share my presentation. Thank you very much. As I said, we work really hard all year to make sure that everyone is prepared for hurricane season. We deal with much more than hurricanes, as Troy pointed out, but that's today's topic. And I am the closer of this meeting, so I will give you very specific information for the city of Miami Beach and the properties that are on Miami Beach. And for any of you that are listening in that are owners of properties that are short-term rentals, there's some information in here for you as well. So first and foremost, Miami Beach is entirely in a storm surge planning zone. And what that means is, and I don't think I need to reiterate this, but what that means is we are a barrier island, and storm surge being one of the largest threats that we have to deal with, because we're in the path of a storm. If it's coming from the Atlantic side, and because we're only a mile long, it is very, very important that if storm surge is a threat, that we do evacuate the island. Now, that is not a decision that's made lightly. Most of Miami Beach is in Zone B. The very, very tip of Miami Beach is in Zone A. So south of 5th is considered Zone A. But for all intents and purposes, if an evacuation order is given for Miami Beach, we are assisting in evacuating the entire island. Now, these decisions are made, as I said, not lightly. They're made at the county level with the participation of, in the case of Miami Beach, with our city manager and our mayor. The National Weather Service is extremely involved because they will do the modeling, and the National Hurricane Center will be doing the modeling to determine the storm surge. We ask visitors, in partnership with Miami-Dade County, we ask visitors to evacuate first. So we still may not be in the cone, but it looks as if the storm is heading this way. And believe me, this is, like I said, not an easy decision to make, but they could start asking for hotels to start to ask their guests to either move to inland hotels or to return home, and we'll see them when the weather is nicer. Also, this seems to happen while the weather is absolutely gorgeous. And it's very difficult sometimes to convince our visitors that they have to leave. But the fact of the matter is, we do everything we can to keep everyone as safe and happy during their stays here. Your responsibilities. It's very, very important that you understand what your risk is. Perform a risk assessment of your property. Know what it is that you are most vulnerable to. If you have a glass facade facing the ocean, I do hope that you have some sort of barrier or some sort of way to board up and protect the glass facade. Develop an emergency plan between you and your staff. Make sure that all staff know what that plan is. Plans mean nothing if they're sitting on a shelf and collecting dust. And you should update those plans, and you should test those plans as often as possible. Holding drills is not a far-fetched idea. And if you need some assistance in performing those drills, you can contact us at the Division of Emergency Management in the city of Miami Beach, and I will give that information at the end of this presentation. One thing that we also provide specifically for Miami Beach properties, but if you are a property that has that you have some properties that are on the mainland, but you're also on Miami Beach, we can work with you as well, is we teach the community emergency response team training, as Mayor Livine Cava had alluded to when she was speaking. We will provide training to a team of individuals on your property who can help before, during, and after a storm. The emergency response team, we tend to only allow 5 members, but depending on the size of your property, it could be more than 5 team members. They should be appointed by the management, obviously, and represent various departments within the hotel. So we're talking your engineers, somebody in management, even somebody in the hospitality side and the maintenance side would actually benefit you to have all these people. They're the primary team for all emergencies. So you're trained for medical emergencies and other emergencies that could affect your team. That doesn't mean that you don't call 911. That doesn't mean that you don't involve public safety personnel, but you're also trained for hurricane preparedness. These are people that need to be familiar with your disaster plan, and hopefully you are sharing this information with all employees. These are people who are able and understand damage assessment, understand what they need to look for. So these are the people that would be allowed back into the city after in the event where we do evacuate the city. These are people who could turn on and turn off the utilities, people who could do some sort of shoring. That's why your engineering team should be involved if God forbid that should happen. And they are designated to be responsible for action before, during, and after a hurricane. We provide the training. So if you give us a call at 305-673-7736, you can also email dem@miamibeachfl.gov. We can provide a course. We tend to wait until we have a group of about 30 people to perform this. We have been doing it in a hybrid fashion for the last several years because of COVID. We've opened it up back to our in-person, but you can take half of the class or a majority of the class online. Once all of the components on the online section are done, we meet either at your property or here in Miami Beach at the Division of Emergency Management at our Emergency Operations Center. And there is some hands-on training. You can see in this photograph, they're doing an assessment of a potential victim. This is actually from one of the hotel trainings that we did, and it's actually in a suite in one of our local hotels. The ERT training provides a background in disaster preparedness. You learn team organization, disaster psychology, organization and management, things like fire suppression, minor fire suppression. If there is a fire, please do call 911 and the fire department will take care of it. But basic things like how to use a fire extinguisher properly. Light search and rescue is part of the training, damage assessment, and other things. We maintain a database with hotel information, but it's based on the information that you provide us. So if you are unsure, if we in the Division of Emergency Management, and we share, the information is shared to us through the Tourism and Cultural Development Department, as well as our Economic Development Department. So we more or less know who the points of contact are. But for our purposes in the Division of Emergency Management, if you want a specific person to be your point of contact for things like hurricanes and emergencies, please let us know. And there's the form that you fill out. One of the forms that you fill out is the property registration. So if you go online to our website and listen carefully, you have to go to miamibeachfl.gov. We are a division under the fire department. So please click on fire, not fire and police pensions, because that's another choice, but that we're under fire. And then when you scroll down, when you get to the fire department page, there is a box that says emergency management. You click on emergency management, and then off to the right-hand side, there are things that say reentry and hotels. You can click on that. You will get to the property registration page, and that is where you will put in information about your property and who the main contact information people are. We repeat the same messages that the county repeats, which is have a plan, build a kit, stay informed. This is more for the short-term rental properties. Your property is not treated like a hotel as far as emergency preparedness is concerned. You're treated more like a private property. So please know what you would do in the case of evacuation and how you will handle the guests at your property. Please impart to the people on your property that they need to have contacts, especially during hurricane season. They should have contacts outside of the area and some sort of a plan, a contingency plan, in case our beautiful sunny South Florida weather turns nasty and they have to leave. They should have a meeting place. They should know what to do with their pets. The school and kids plan is basically from our regular information. Building a kit is important. It may behoove those of you in short-term rentals to have a hurricane kit tucked away somewhere on the property that is available should there be a storm where they're asked to shelter in place, because it's not a dangerous, all storms have the potential to be dangerous, but it's not a storm like a category 4 or 5 that we would have to evacuate. So it's a good idea to have people to have some sort of a kit available. And again, this information is available on our website. This is only a short list. There's a longer list online, and there's other online resources, and you can always call us and we can assist you with that. And staying informed is extremely important. When we're talking about staying informed, I'm talking about reliable sources. Sometimes people hear things on the rumor mill, somebody tweets something or sends something out on Facebook that is blatantly false. Please, for proper information, stick to the information that's coming directly from the National Weather Service. Stick to, if you're going to be on social media, stick to the social media pages of the City of Miami Beach or Miami-Dade County, or the Convention and Visitors Bureau, or the Hotel Association, or NBC6. They are a reliable source. So if you follow that information, you should have the most up-to-date information and be able to keep your guests safe. Miami Beach offers something called MB Alert. It would probably behoove the concierges to sign up for this text messaging service at 888-777. You can also go online and fill out a form to get all sorts of different updates and information from the city. When you sign up for MB Alert, there is what's called push information that comes through directly from the National Weather Service. So if there's lightning within 5 miles of your property, or there's a storm coming through. Yesterday afternoon, there were some storms that came through. They didn't really affect Miami Beach as heavily as they thought they would, but these are the kinds of information that we would send out through MB Alert. And it doesn't always come directly from the City of Miami Beach. It sometimes gets pushed through directly from the National Weather Service. And that is our information, 305-673-7736. That number is our main line. After hours, is transferred to one of my staff's cell phone or myself. So someone will answer the phone if you have a question, or you can email us at dem@miamibeachfl.gov. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Shari. And a heck of a close as usual. Thank you again for all the information and the energy and the partnership. And in fact, Shari, back in the day, worked with the county, if I recall. So as you can tell, the synergies between the City of Miami Beach, the county, and all the municipalities is so important. Obviously, the Hotel Association the GMCVB. Whenever we're entering that cone, we will activate on our website, Miami and MiamiBeach.com, a travel advisory with all the consolidated information that might be useful to our visitors. We will also create links for hotel availability using whatever technologies are relevant at the moment. So there's a lot of things that will happen and come to life as they have for so many years. We've got a few minutes for a quick Q&A. And Shari, one question came through that perhaps you can field, if not perhaps the colleagues, is how do we know when, if guests are allowed to return to Miami Beach hotels?
Thank you for that question. The city will be open as soon as it is safe to travel back into the city. So announcements will be made. Again, when we say stay informed, announcements will be made via reliable social media. If you're hearing it, if you're reading it on one Twitter page or one tweet tells you that the city's open, but you're not seeing it anywhere else, it's not being reported in local news and it's not being reported elsewhere, chances are that's not true. Evacuation is not that difficult. Re-entry is a little bit more difficult. And that is why, depending on the kind of damage that can be done, potentially be done during a storm, we evacuate the island because our teams, as soon as the all clear is given to public safety teams, our teams go in, make sure that the streets are clear, that if you have flooding and you have down power lines, that's a recipe for absolute disaster if people are driving around. So our crews have to go in, make sure, A, that there's no debris in the streets and that our main thoroughfares are clear. And also to make sure that the areas are safe enough. There's a chance we could open up the city in pieces, depending, excuse me, depending on the type of damage that is done. Now, I said, we're professional pessimists in emergency management. We're going to go with the assumption that the worst has happened and then be pleasantly surprised when it's not as bad. But the alert will come out from the county mayor. The county mayor is the one who will declare that the cities are open. Our mayor and our city manager will be speaking with the county, but the announcement will be made through the county Office of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Shari. And local broadcast, especially with Ryan on NBC6, is probably a real up-to-date source of credible information. So that is much appreciated. There was another question which I believe has been answered, but I'll just pose it again frankly to ourselves. Where can our guests get updated travel advisories, find alternate housing, et cetera? We've already talked about some of the great websites, whether it's the county, the city. What we will focus on at the GMCVB, we will activate our travel advisory on every page of our website, one click away, consolidating a lot of the great information from our city and county partners. And additionally, we will focus in on availability of hotel rooms because as parts of our community evacuate, other parts may have that availability. And we'll be closely working with Wendy at the Hotel Association. So those are the only two questions that I've come across thus far, but I know I had another colleague or two, but I know we're scheduled to wrap up at 12:15. So I will pause on that note. There might be a question amongst the panel that might serve the audience well. Otherwise, I will defer to David and Wendy as co-hosts of this webinar to perhaps say a few words and close out if there are no other specific questions. I do see site for reentry passes, please. So I apologize. If this was Jeopardy, that was not in the form of a question. But there is someone who's saying site for reentry passes, please. My assumption is that where can someone go to get their reentry passes? Shari, perhaps that's for you?
Yep, I will post that information just now, but I need to let you know, we're not giving reentry passes. If you're a member of the emergency response team for your property, you are allowed reentry. And that process will become clear as you fill out the form. And you will have, we just ask that everybody have enough ID on them to prove that they work for the property in question, that their name is on the list, that the form is filled out. We have a copy of the forms once they're completed. We share them with the police department and their patrols that are on the reentry points. Hopefully we won't get to that point. But let me grab that information. I will post it momentarily.
Great. Sherry, as you do that, Wendy, David, have you any final thoughts, or frankly to anybody, Troy, Ryan, any parting words of wisdom for our viewers?
Well, I was thinking about for Troy, what the city of Miami Beach does with the hotels, and because of COVID, the contact information had to be updated. So it's constantly changing. And I think that we should work together for all of the hotels in Miami-Dade County to make sure that we have updated contacts, because I'm pretty sure we don't. And I look at and I think about downtown Brickell, Coconut Grove. Brickell can be a disaster during a rainstorm. So I think though we can work together, if you like, Troy, to get the updated contact information, because the beach, you do a great job of that.
That'd be great. That'd be great, and that'd be definitely a stressor that we like to stress to have make sure all the contacts are updated, so that any coordination that's needed, we know quickly who we can work with.
Absolutely.
When working with the Visitors Bureau, that'd be great. Thank you.
Now, City of Miami Beach manager Alina Hudak, you've I don't know if you wanted to share. I know you've joined. You turned back your camera on, so hopefully that heated call cooled down a bit. Are you able? You want to share?
I've been listening, and again, I just want everyone to know our commitment and our interest in making sure that we are communicating properly, that we have the most up-to-date information, that we're constantly in communication, because it's so important to be ready and to be prepared, and so that we can alleviate our levels of anxiety all across the board. Thank you to the Bureau for your leadership in doing this, and obviously Wendy for always bringing us all together. And we stand ready and prepared, and obviously hopeful that we won't have to ever deal with this type of a circumstance, but know that we're prepared if we do.
David, you get the last word.
Well, again, I want to thank our panel, especially our three panelists, Ryan, Troy, Shari. Thank you for your professionalism. Thank you for your experience in this and for giving us the guidance. I'll just take a moment. I see that we had, right now we have still 78 people on the call. And so we're not in a room together, but if we were in a room together, I'd ask, of the 78 people, how many of you were not here in 2005? And some of you would raise your hand. I was here in 2005, many of us were, and that was the last time, as Ryan indicated earlier, that's the last time we were actually slammed that year with two hurricanes, both Katrina and Wilma in that August. So if you weren't here in 2005, you don't have that direct experience. I'd also just ask, if we raised our hands, how many of you on this call or in your hotel property were not here last year? And if you raise your hand, and there are some new family members, you really, really, really need to take the time, not just this seminar, but you really do need to take the time to walk through with your teammates our preparation and the plan. Because once it happens and things are getting very frantic, is not the time to be trying to figure out, but as Ryan said, be prepared, know the plan, so that if it has to happen, you can conduct yourself with a level of calmness, confidence, and more importantly, give that confidence to our guests. Because really, at the end of the day, that's what this is most important for us, is to make sure that our visitors who are here, that we take care of them. And the only way we can do that is with information, with knowledge, and with everybody being on the same page. So please, I just implore you, take the time to dig deep, have discussions among your site and your property level, and really make sure everybody's on the same page. It will pay off in big dividends. If for nothing else, you'll have the confidence. And as a result, your teammates will have the confidence. And more importantly, our guests will have you to be confident in. So I hope we don't need to use the plan, but we need to be prepared. I would just want to continue to offer our support working with our partners. If you have any further questions, Wendy, of course, anything we can do to assist you in the hotel community. We do have great partners at the municipal, city, and state and county level, as well as all the resources, but it takes teammates to be on the same page. So let's get prepared and prepare for the worst and pray for the least. That's it. So with that, let's just take it on home. Thank you for being on the call, everyone. do get prepared, get your family and teammates prepared so that then they can dedicate their time and resources to our guests. And with that, we'll say good afternoon and thank everyone on the call.
Thank you.